Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Laurie DiPerzio, and she is the Executive Director of the Women's Resource Center located in Newport, Rhode Island. First time on the show, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You know, whenever I introduce a place like this, and I mention the town, I'm hesitant to actually say Newport only because you're really, it's more of a sphere of influence, an area, as opposed to just a town, right?
Correct.
Tell us about the Women's Resource Center.
Well, we actually serve Newport and Bristol counties, so there are 9 cities and towns that we actually provide services to victims of domestic violence and their family members.
How did it start?
Actually, in 1977, a bunch of women got together. When I say a bunch, 3, and sat around.
All of them.
I know, and sat around and talked about how they might be able to provide services to women, and that's how the name started. Women's Resource Center. It evolved into really being a domestic violence actual program. We call them programs when they fall under the coalition. We have a coalition in Rhode Island, the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and there are 6 programs under the coalition, and we happen to be one of the 6 serving Newport and Bristol counties.
So all those 6 serve Newport and Bristol counties?
No, actually, they actually serve a segment of Rhode Island.
Okay.
So the whole state is broken up among these 6 agencies.
So if someone should happen to contact you with need, even if they weren't necessarily part of your area, you could certainly refer them to the appropriate place, correct?
We actually have an 800 number that people can call for the state, and that they are then triaged at that level and then recommended to go to a different, possibly if it's not our area, a different program.
So, you know, this question is kind of obvious, but I need to ask it in the sense of a Women's Resource Center. How was it decided way back when, before even the term domestic violence, which is really what it is now, came about, but way back when? What happened, what caused them, these 3 women at first, to sort of come together and decide to start this? Obviously there was a need for it.
There was a need, I think, in back then to actually help women provide services in all different areas. It wasn't just domestic violence. And then it actually, the phone calls they were receiving were more related to abuse. And so it evolved into this organization, a 501c3, and then the coalition was born in Rhode Island. Meanwhile, I believe it was 3 or 4 different agencies started, and then they emerged under the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. But it was about helping women, and it evolved into the domestic violence because that was the number of phone calls they were receiving for help.
Now, this coalition that you speak of, does it make sense and that the more symmetry you have, the more services, as it were, that are available, it just makes more sense that way? It makes life easier for everybody, especially the people that are in need?
Well, with regards to the coalition, they do a lot of our lobbying at the state level, so they're out there really trying to provide and educate the politicians in the state in order to change laws to protect victims of domestic violence.
And that's important because if they don't understand exactly how do they go to bat, so to speak, they have to learn, you know, what's going on and the reasons for it so they can go, yeah, I think this is a necessary program that's needed.
Exactly. Right now there is a bill that's at the House. I don't know if it's in the House or the Senate, but it's actually, it's called a prevention bill, and the whole idea of it is to have people in the state of Rhode Island, the fee to get married, I believe, is $45, and they did a study, and the average for all the states in Rhode Island is like 100. And so they decided that let's try to put the marriage fee up and take the extra and actually give it back to the domestic violence or any, not just our program, but any domestic violence program to work on prevention. So that hopefully is going to pass this year, and that will help put some more money into the programs because, as you know, the state and federal government are cutting. We get cuts every year. You
know, prevention, that's a big thing now, preventing it from even happening in the first place. And one of the ways you do that is to educate people in general. Talk about that a little bit.
Correct. I'm excited because our actual agency is one of the leaders in Rhode Island on prevention. And we actually have a grant that was provided from the CDC, and that is to help us really educate people in the field of prevention. It's evolved. That's another area that's evolved. We used to think, oh, let's go into schools and tell kids not to bully. Well, we realized that after a period of time, that's not working because you have to actually change social norms. So now what we are doing is actually going into neighborhoods and trying to get neighbors to know each other, because we found that if neighbors know each other, violence goes down and other health risks go down: substance abuse, alcoholism, obesity. When people start to know each other and care about each other,
Right.
violence will go down in that neighborhood.
It's a lot easier to be mean to a stranger or abuse a stranger than it is to someone you know or someone that you could actually call your friend.
Actually, a very interesting thing happened this winter with all the snowstorms. I was actually house sitting for some friends, and I needed someone to come plow the driveway. So I called this person. They said they can't do it because their plow broke. I go up the street because a neighbor asked me to come have dinner with them, and this is a neighborhood I don't really know people, but I knew them, and they had told me, oh, we invited such and such to come over for dinner tonight because the plow broke, and they're like at each other. And I sat there, realized that's exactly what we're talking about, neighbors knowing each other. They were taking care of their neighbor without even realizing it, because they realized at home it was a little tense.
Yeah.
The plow broke. They
Yeah.
couldn't make any money that particular day.
Right.
It was a very interesting, it really brought it home to me.
And you're really you're really losing a lot of money if you can't take advantage of this past
Yeah,
winter that
right.
we've just had, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about networking too, apparently. Again, that's just like getting to befriend somebody as opposed to them being a stranger. Even if they are just
Exactly.
your neighbor, you're less likely to do something, you know, in a negative sense to somebody you know. So that networking, that getting to know people, even those simple things of friendship can prevent abuse, violence, whatever words you want to use.
It may not prevent it, but it will help.
Reduce the risk.
It may allow you to have a better, easier conversation with somebody if it's your friend and you notice something might be going on.
Now, domestic abuse in pop culture in general, you hear about it a lot with famous people and with professional athletes. Certainly over the past NFL season, front and center with, unfortunately, the Ray Rice video being shown everywhere on TV, with what happened in the elevator. And that's just one example. And I think even a big league like the NFL was caught off guard without knowing what to do, proper procedures. There really wasn't a sort of a prevention plan in place for them too. And I know, you know, that filters down to even a local women's resource center as far as, you know, what you can talk about and just how it would affect you and hit you, you know?
One of the things that happened with us is our phones started ringing more.
Is that right, really?
Yes, because people started realizing, wait a minute, I might be in a domestic violence situation and not even realize it.
And that happens a lot?
It does happen a lot because people think that it's just physical. Oftentimes, they don't realize it's about power and control. And it may be that somebody, your significant other, is saying to you, you can't go out with your friends. You can't have any money. You can't, you know, go and see or talk to people on the phone, even your family members. That does happen a lot, and you don't even realize that's going on.
You just kind of accept it, and you may not like it, but in your mind, that doesn't sound necessarily like domestic abuse, right?
Exactly, but it does come back down to power and control and understanding the cycle of violence, because oftentimes, too, a person might be really mean to somebody and then apologize and then bring the flowers, and then you're hopeful that person's going to be like they were when I started dating that person, because you're in love. It's all about being in love
Right.
and having, you know, that feeling of someone loving me.
Right.
And you're always hopeful that that relationship will go back there. And oftentimes it does not.
Now, to get back to prevention for a second, because we talked about, you know, going into the schools and talking to the kids about bullying and just all the things that go along with domestic violence. But you mentioned after a while it doesn't work. But still, is it not important to get to kids early to educate them about it?
Absolutely.
It may be just a different approach that you take, right?
Absolutely. We did do a program at the Middletown Middle School, and we actually got the school involved in changing the social norms. We didn't realize what was happening when we first went in. We did a whole assessment. We found out that there was actually bullying going on. Oh, where would you think it might happen? Hallways, lunchrooms. So they automatically put more teachers out in the hallways and in the lunchroom, which would help reduce that. But what happened was the kids started talking about it, the teachers started talking about it, they started talking about character development. And that's really what we're talking about. And so that's changing social norms. We went in thinking, oh, let's help them put a anti-bullying policy together for the school, and it really evolved into this whole place that we didn't expect it to go, and actually became a very great program. And we were actually able to leave, and they still do the program. They call us once in a while for advice, but they're the ones that change that whole environment at the school.
How about cyberbullying?
Horrible.
And it's another one of those buzzwords that's very high profile these days because everybody has an iPad, a phone, a laptop. They can be online, and you can be anonymous if you want to.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we found is that people are stalking their person, and that is the one thing that we actually had to go out and get additional training for, because we really didn't understand what does that mean, and that if a person can get access to your phone, you go take a shower, somebody can actually take your phone and put the GPS, turn the GPS on, or actually put an app on that helps them track you. And so those types of things are happening all the time. Kids on their computers. I actually saw a TV ad the other day, or a program, I forget exactly what it was, and it was really talking about knowing what your kids are doing on the computer. Don't just assume that they're in the safe places or they're just doing video games. You really need to monitor what they're doing because of all this cyber bullying that's going on.
And it must be tough for some parents if they're not able to stay up with the technology. The kids know all about it, but not necessarily all parents know about it,
That's
right?
correct, right. Yeah. And so there are programs out in the communities where they actually have, for the parents, learning what do you do, how do you monitor.
Knowing acronyms, because kids love to use those,
Correct.
Especially when they're texting or
exactly.
On Facebook.
Right.
Let's take a break and come back. I want you to give out the website to the Women's Resource Center so people can go and learn more.
It's www.wrcnbc.org.
You might have been one extra W in there, but we've got the graphic up on the screen,
Okay.
so don't worry. Lori DiPerzio, Executive Director of the Women's Resource Center. We'll take a short break and come back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest is Lori DiPerzio. She is the Executive Director of the Women's Resource Center. We'll say of Rhode Island. How about that? Well, Newport and Bristol counties. That's
yes.
really the most. We had you give the website out when we went to the break. What's on the website for people to see?
There's an array of information. A lot of it is talking about our programs and services, but we also have a segment where if a person is in need and they want to know what they need to do next steps, say they want to leave and they're not really sure what to do, we have a whole area there about safety planning and making sure that they think about the things that they might need. For example, if they're planning on leaving.
I want to talk about that,
Okay.
on the air too. So what if they don't know what the next move is to make, if they
Right.
think that they're in that situation?
So oftentimes today, people used to always leave in the middle of the night. They don't do that so much anymore.
They get
It's
a good night's sleep first? Or
Yeah, it's more planful.
Okay.
Because the laws have been in place enough now to protect people, even though we know that a restraining order isn't necessarily, it's not going to stop you from
Right.
coming and seeing me, but the law is if you do, you're going to be arrested. So that's a protection. But if they are thinking about leaving, there's the 800 number to call to at least talk to an advocate on the phone that will help you determine what you need, and then maybe connect them with a domestic violence agency in their area. But if they are thinking of leaving, we will talk to them about planning on making sure you have some money saved and put away. Make sure that if you have any connections to banks, that you get access to them somehow, or get your own bank account. Make sure that the computer that you're using is safe, and we teach them how to do that. If you're taking children, you need to make sure you're taking birth certificates with you, and prescriptions. And if you have pets, if thinking about putting them in a shelter for themselves. And then we actually plan, if they're going to go in, we'll do an intake, and if they're going to go into a shelter, we actually plan that. We might help them get there with transportation. Sometimes the police are involved in helping us get them to a safe place.
Now, the first thing they have to do is make the call. I mean, you have all the resources. They have all the resources available to them from you. But they just have to make that initial first move, right? And that's the hardest thing to do.
It is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And they may call and then make the decision, I'm not ready. Or they may decide, well, my child's still in school and I want him to finish this year before we move, or
Now,
something like that.
would you discourage them to do that if that's their mindset? Listen, you need to get out of this situation, as soon as possible, and not wait till the end of the school semester, or not so much.
Right. Well, so we never tell anybody what to do. We give them options. We help them. We ask them, what do they need from us? And we help them. We give them all the information that they may need, and then we are there for them wherever they are. They may leave and go back, and we're still there for them all the time, because we don't make judgment on a person. It is very difficult to leave.
Yeah. The person really needs that courage, that initial courage. And sometimes pride gets in the way too, doesn't it?
Oh, shame.
Shame.
I would call it more shame. Because we had a case actually in one of our towns where we had a doctor and he was abusing his wife, and it went on for years. And it was a very well-known doctor, and they had a lot of children. And he actually got jail time, and the judge for 45 minutes lectured him about how he was over the years just abusing. And so now you're married to this doctor. He's supposed to be somebody,
a healer, right?
Right?
In some way.
Somebody in the community, a pillar in the community, and you don't want to tell anybody what's going on.
Right.
You're afraid. You're not only afraid, you're ashamed of that.
Yeah. So somehow they have to get past that, so they can make that initial.
Right.
They have to reach out that first time and take
Right.
it from there. There's so much stuff I want to get to, more specifically about the programs. But before we do that, I want to get to some of the events that you have coming up, because I think that's important. Now, are these events, are they raising awareness events? Are they fundraising events? What are they for?
A lot of them they're fundraisers to raise money, of course, but for example, we have an event coming up May 1st. It's called Men Who Make a Difference.
And I want to talk about that too, because Women's Resource Center, you wouldn't think that men would be involved, but
Right.
they are, and this event is about that, isn't it?
Right, and so we honor men in the community that are doing good work. And the whole premise is that we try to bring men into our work, to engage them in our work, because men can help prevent violence, and they can help actually change stereotyping. For example, if you're out with a bunch of guys and all of a sudden one of them is telling an off-color joke, you need the resources as a man how to stand up to that person and say, listen, that's making me uncomfortable. So we want to be able to engage men in our work to help them be able to do that.
Is this a man talking to another man?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's one of the programs that we actually have in Rhode Island. Is called the 10 Men Program, and that is one of the programs that actually help men in the state of Rhode Island to really understand what you can do to help stop violence against women.
Do they have a role and a responsibility
They do.
Yeah. To be involved.
And that's a statewide program, so I'm not as familiar with it, other than it's a great program.
Yeah, we've had them
that.
on the show a few times. Great organization, the 10 Men. So that's so it's involving men, but it's also a fundraiser too, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
How are you funded, by the way?
Most of our funding comes from the federal government.
And we know that cutbacks and everything kind of makes you kind of cross your fingers each
Correct.
year when
Every
the budget
year.
comes out. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But we've been very fortunate because we've gotten some major funding from CDC, and we actually just got a state grant from the Department of Health for our prevention work.
Congratulations.
So thank you. It was a
Yeah.
big one for us.
Big sigh of relief, especially for the executive director, I would imagine too.
Yeah.
So that's coming up in May. What are some other events that you have probably a little later down the road?
Well, we have two events. It's called Wild Women Lunches, where we actually honor women in the community, because we were doing the men's event for so many years, and everyone kept saying, why don't you do women? Why don't you have women come into that event? We actually asked the men to wait on their guests for tips. And so we didn't want to mix that message, because women always wait on men. They wait on people all the time. So we said, no, we want this to be strictly a men's event. So that's what the men's event is. And then on the Wild Women Lunches, it's more of just a social afternoon lunch. And it's really, we honor 10 women, Bristol County, and 10 women from Newport County. And then in October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we have a lot of activities that are going on there. Then they're more awareness activities.
And I'm sure all that stuff will be on the website for them to learn more.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked a lot about that person who's in a bad situation taking that first step, and that's them themselves. What if you are not the abuser or the abused, but what if you are someone on the peripheral, like a bystander? What do you do in that situation? Because that's sort of a program you have, isn't it?
Well, it's an awareness
awareness,
campaign
okay.
that we've been doing the last couple of years through the coalition, and it really builds in October. And so it depends on who you are. Are you a friend? Are you a coworker? Are you a parent of a child that might be being bullied or is in an unhealthy dating relationship? It just depends on what the actual situation is. But if you are a friend of somebody and you start to notice, oh, look, that person has bruises, or they're missing work all the time, or they're not calling me as much, to be able to have that open communication and be able to gently ask them, are you okay? Is there anything you need from me? Can I help you in any way? So it's really making sure you have the website or the phone number to call a local domestic violence agency.
That's got to be tough too, because they don't want to feel like they're infringing on somebody else's privacy, or
Exactly.
feel like the first thing is they feel like, is this my business or not?
Correct.
And how do you get past that?
Right. We actually had a campaign some years back, It Is Your Business, and that was the campaign, because it's all of our business to make sure people are safe and are not in a violent situation. So it's our business. That's what we do.
What other programs do you want to talk about that you think deserve to get a mention or some attention that you guys are involved with?
Well, most of our clients come through the court program.
Okay, so court
there's
advocacy?
Yes, so the court advocacy program is very important, because there may have been an arrest and now there has to be a pretrial and possibly a trial, and that client is going to stand before the judge, and now they're thrown into a court system that's very difficult to understand. And our court advocate is there to be with that person to help them understand what all their options are.
They're not a lawyer per se.
No,
right?
they are not a lawyer,
Okay.
actually. And then they actually stand with them in front of the judge. And the judge really trusts our advocates, and sometimes will ask the court advocate to come forward to the bench and talk with them privately, or ask them to go into their chambers. So the court program is important in that it helps navigate all the systems. And then we refer them to counseling, and we ask them if there were children involved. Did they witness the abuse? We have counseling for children as well. We have a counseling program where even if you don't have insurance, which still people do not have insurance, we see uninsured people. We get grants actually to see uninsured clients.
If anything, that probably is more maybe convoluted, and the Affordable Care Act was supposed to kind of even things out or make things easier. Maybe not so much in some cases.
Actually, not so much in our. That's what I see.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's important for us is that oftentimes a person might be coming in with insurance with that significant other,
Right.
and they don't want to use it. And so our job is, okay, you don't need to. We're going to take care of that. So that's one case that people may not want to use the insurance. The other case is that trafficking is a huge problem right now. So oftentimes they're coming in from another country, and they don't have insurance, or they moved out of from another state quickly, and they don't have even anything they don't even have an insurance card with them. So it's all those different variables that come into play.
It's amazing what you don't know and what you can learn just from this half hour, which we are out of time, unfortunately. So one more time on the website for people to go and learn more if they have questions or, maybe kind of they learn something and maybe are willing to take that next step. What's the website?
wrcnbc.org.
All right. A graphic up on the screen as well. We did learn a lot today, too. Important stuff. Lori DiPerzio, Executive Director of the Women's Resource Center. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You can see this show and many others on our YouTube site. Till next time, this is For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. Take care.